All right, welcome to the video for the lesson on the the trapezoid proofs. The trapezoid proofs are a little bit easier, I think, than the parallelogram proofs, just because they're not as common, one, and they usually give you a little bit more information because they are actually more challenging to prove. So they usually give you a ton of information. Question number one was actually a question I used on a quiz a couple years ago, just to kind of show the relationship between parallelograms and trapezoids. So in this question, it says, which of the following statements is true? And the answer is actually choice A. All parallelograms are trapezoids. So if you remember the family tree of quadrilaterals, we had quadrilateral, that led to trapezoid, which led to isosceles traps, which then led to parallelograms. So essentially, a parallelogram is just a trapezoid with some special features. So explain your answer from question number one is a parallelogram is a trapezoid with two sets of parallel sides. That's what makes it special and not just a plain old trapezoid. Let's look at the proof. So for number three, it tells us that there are two triangles in this picture that are both isosceles, DEC and AEB. Isosceles triangles tell us we have congruent angles and congruent sides. So I could label a bunch of congruent angles and a bunch of congruent sides here. It also says that CD and AB are parallel to each other. It then says to prove that triangle AED is congruent to triangle BEC. This is actually super easy, and I'm going to label some angles here that might help you understand that. And it's 5 and 6. Those are vertical angles. Look at that. So just by the fact that we have some isosceles triangles, I can use side angle side to prove that those two triangles are congruent. For those of you that need the highlighter or just want to see what triangles I'm talking about this one and this one. Look at that. So now we have our triangles. We have side angle side. I can do that first part. To prove it's an isosceles trapezoid, I can use CPCTC to prove the opposite sides are congruent. So I actually don't need angles 1, 2, 3, or 4 at all, but I put them in there just because I could have used them for something maybe. I just didn't need them for this proof. So the first given that I'm going to use here is that triangle DEC is isosceles, and that's given. And that triangle AEB is isosceles, also given. Each one of these tells a set of congruent segments. So the first one, DEC, tells us that DE is congruent to CE. And the reason why is in an isosceles triangle, two sides are congruent. For the second one, I also know that AE and BE are congruent by the same reason. So we have in an isosceles triangle, two sides are congruent. So just from those two givens, I know two sets of sides are congruent. I have two of the three pieces of info I need. If I then go through and do vertical angles, 5 and 6 are vertical. So I can say angle 5 is congruent to angle 6. They are vertical angles. And then I could say the two triangles are congruent. Triangle AED and triangle BEC. By side, angle side. I have 1, 2, 3 arrows pointing to it. Now that tells us that our triangles are congruent, which means all of their corresponding parts are congruent. So I can say that these two segments AD and CB are congruent. Now, here's the problem, and here's the main difference between this proof and the one we did in class. Nowhere in the given does it tell us that this is a trapezoid. So I have to say that, and this is what tells us it's a trapezoid. So right down here, I'm going to say CD and AB are parallel. So I'm going to say CD is parallel to AB. That's given. And what that tells us is ABCD is a trapezoid because it has one set of parallel sides. So now I know it's a trapezoid. And because of this congruent set of triangles, I know two of the sides, AD and BC, are congruent by CPCTC. And because of those two reasons, I know it's an isosceles trapezoid. So I could say ABCD is an isosceles trapezoid because it has two congruent sides. And I'm done. If you're watching this video, I hope that you're not struggling or at least being frustrated by the proofs. It's just one topic of a lot of different topics in this course. So don't make it kind of kill your whole year here. All right, if it's one part of a quarter that's you're not going to have good grades in, it's not going to kill you. All right, so just make sure that you keep practicing, keep trying these on your own. The biggest thing that I want to tell you is a lot of you in class are not trying these on your own. You're not doing the homework. You're not trying it. When I say try and figure out what the next two steps are yourself, that's big. All right, you got to really try and do them by yourself. The first time that you do it by yourself shouldn't be on a quiz or a test. All right. Don't forget to do your homework over the weekend, your take-home quiz as well. All right. Make sure that you're using your notes and all that stuff, anything that you can to make sure you get good grades on that. Hopefully this video helps, and good luck.